Yo, 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 welcome to the show. So, today we are talking about The Iron Claw, starring Zac Efron. Now, I was really excited about this film. There are not many trailers that come out that actually compel me nowadays. Generally, trailers are not that good, even when the film is very good. But this had a really good trailer. And I was like, yeah, that's really exciting. And then when I found out it was a true story, because even though I actually really enjoyed wrestling when I was a kid, to the point where I'd even watched the Hulk Hogan cartoon, I didn't know this story. I don't know about these brothers. This is not a side of wrestling that I knew anything about. And going into the movie, I went in blind because I didn't research it. So it was all new to me. And it's a very interesting film, and it's very carefully directed in a way where it feels almost like you're a fly on the wall, but not in a like mockumentary style, but in that it feels almost like you're getting snapshots of kind of a decade out of these people's lives. And I mean snapshots as in it's like, it's not really cinema dialogue, it's not really movie conversation. It almost just feels like you're getting like very real conversations to the point where they're almost boring, like just a normal chat about nothing that's got no particular poetry to it or anything, but it's very carefully done to a point where early on I was very engaged in it, but I was thinking, I don't know if this is a great film. Like this is compelling, but I don't think it's great. And then after a while, that kind of way it eases you in works to build upon its own authenticity. And by the end, I thought, oh man, this is the fact that it's true. It's sort of, you believe in it more and more and more because of how it's directed. And I've got to say, it's quite interesting because it's very soft in its direction. There's nothing like 1980s WWF boom, boom, boom. Like you could almost expect some of that. But the directors clearly made a point of being like, that's what you already got. You got that on TV and you got that in the magazines, and a lot of that stuff exists. So let me show you pretty much everything else, all the quietness that took place outside of the ring and outside of the kind of celebrity or wannabe celebrity, certainly the bright colours of that sport and that era. And there is, I don't normally read reviews, but I did look up a little bit, and I don't know who reviewed this. Somebody, it was written, and he said something about the violence that takes place within the ring is nothing compared to the psychological violence that takes place out of it. And I thought that's a brilliant way to articulate the kind of soul of the film. Although the psychological trauma which must be happening among these characters as you're watching this family disintegrate, and you're kind of thinking, how come? Because they're so physically strong and you'd think they have a certain amount of mental tenacity that must go with it. It's very difficult as a viewer to actually fully understand all the mental pain and anguish going on, to the point where it does kind of very subtly poke at the potential for like what nowadays is called toxic masculinity. And it's not a term I care to use much, but I do think it's certainly valid for a story where human beings are being made essentially into cartoon characters, because wrestling is a bit like, I'm so angry, and it's almost like you're either a cartoon villain or a cartoon hero. And you could say there's something toxic in that if you're expected to fill those shoes as a human being, when underneath you actually have to deal with all the truth of being a human and not a caricature. And even though maybe this is an accident, I did think to myself, even Zac Efron looks like He-Man. Like, he's so physically fit that it's like he actually looks like a cartoon character. But isn't it interesting how that physical strength of someone who's what is the He-Man line? Something about the most powerful man in the universe, physically. But then you have to deal with being a human. Now, let's talk about this subject matter for a second. And before I go into, because I don't want to spoil anything. So this is a true story, but I don't want to say any spoilers about the film in case you haven't seen it. It does deal with like things like suicide, which I was angry initially, and then I realized it's so obvious because in the beginning of the film, on the certificate, it says like these are the things to watch out for. So before the film even starts, it kind of gives that away, that suicide is a theme. But on that note, I learned that there is a brother, because this is essentially a story about a group of brothers. There are so many I lose count. Because one of the brothers in real life isn't in the film. And the writer said he thought the heaviness of adding this brother who actually committed suicide when he was 21 was too much. It's like too many dominoes. And he didn't feel that the story had space in it or room, and he didn't feel like it was almost like enough is enough. But I genuinely feel like, even though he made a great film, the film director, he really did, I still feel like that's a mistake because this is a true story. And if you write it into a script and it's fiction, I understand you can remove it. But this being true, it seems like not only a disservice to that person, but it's a disservice to the exploration of why did all of this happen? Why did so many of them get what they consider to be a curse? And if one brother commits suicide, it is going to have an emotional knock-on effect. So it's crucial to kind of trying to dismantle why these things happen. Now, going back to something I said earlier, I said that there's trauma happening, but you as an audience aren't necessarily aware of it because the conversation and things seem almost bland. But that's a credit to the film, because in real life, that is what it's like. Like if you're dealing with a group of men, you might just say, well, they seem okay. He seemed fine. I didn't think anything was wrong. They'd, be sort of polite and eat a cheeseburger with you and then go and do their work. And you didn't know that all that stuff was happening inside their head. And I actually think it's a credit to the film that it's directed in this very kind of slow, methodical, and like I said, kind of soft, which is a balance against the hardness of the sport and the toll that it in their lifestyle starts to take on. There's another thing that I did think was very interesting. Now, Zac Efron's love interest and wife in the film is played by an actress called Lily James. And I've got to give credit to that actress. I don't really praise actors enough, I don't think. But one thing I've got to praise her on is she's had such a string of bad films. Every time I see that girl in a film, I'm like, this is probably going to be a bad film. And just there's never been anything wrong with her. But she's always in these films where I think, oh, this is a terrible film. And it was really good to see that she actually finally landed a role in a really good movie. And she's really good in it. But the reason I bring her up is because if you've seen the film, there's something that I think is actually quite integral. And it might have been intentional and it might not. But the film is written and directed by one man. So you can't help but put your own personal feelings about something into something, regardless of whether or not you intend to. That's kind of what art is like. If you're honest and you create something, some of you is in there. So what I have to highlight about this wife character is that one thing I really like about her is that she's the only one where, so to go back, like when Efron first meets her, he says, surely you've heard about this family curse we have. It's this thing that they say is a curse. And first it's almost like a joke, even though he had his oldest brother died when he was very young, like 6 or something. But since then it's like, yeah, everyone talks about the curse. There's that famous... I put that film on purposefully as an example of what you'd call toxic masculinity, but because Arnold Schwarzenegger was sort of like the catalogue symbol of what a man was and can be in that time period. So I thought it was relevant to this film. But anyway, so apparently this family, who were all raised to be wrestlers, all of them brothers, have this so-called curse that things are just going to go wrong in their life. And I really like the fact that Efron's wife is the only one in the film who keeps saying, "Don't be ridiculous. Don't be ridiculous." And it's very much like a woman would be or can be, where she's grounded. She's not going with him with that. She's not following. It's like, I'll follow you in your kind of goals and your passions, and I encourage that. But when you bring up this curse stuff, even though it's very minor, she's always like, I don't want to hear about it. Don't be ridiculous. She brings him down to earth in that way. And the reason I think it's significant is because the film is told in such a way where no other brother has that strong female balance. Without giving to it, like something, there's a brother who is in an accident which you don't even see, but towards the end of the film he shows up at this Christmas party and he's got his like new girlfriend, and the parents are like, oh, who's she? And he introduces her for the first time, and the implication is this guy's never really settled with anyone. There's always another girlfriend or another whatever fling, and you never see anyone strong by that person's side. And none of the brothers have that. There's no brother in the film who has a strong female counterpart, except for Zac Efron's character, and it feels almost like either that's very true or the director is being like, he's putting it in because that's something that he feels strongly about. But, and this is one of the issues with telling a true story, one of the brothers, and I'm still trying not to give spoilers here, but this is clear if you've seen it, one of the brothers wants to be a musician. He doesn't want to be a professional wrestler. And the curse kind of gets him too. And at one point, that character is in an accident which affects him very severely. And in real life, he was married, and he got married on Valentine's Day. And I would like to know more about that. And it's the only kind of thing I can criticize about in the film is because it's all true and the landscape or everything in there, like the canvas is so big for this true story. Obviously, it's very hard to capture like 5-6 people and more even in 2 hours, but I didn't feel like you needed to shrink it. It's like you can watch a film like this, could be 3 hours. I don't think people would have trouble. There's enough time to add in the story of the missing brother. I just thought that's the one thing that I can criticize, really, and I don't want to criticize it, but when you realize, oh, there's a whole missing brother here, it's also like a missing link to the puzzle of why did all of this take place. But ultimately, I like the fact that this so-called curse was almost broken in part by the wife being like, kind of no, like just a refusal to believe in it, and all of that aside, it's just a very, very good film. Very kind of, I'm sure it took a lot of work, but it has a kind of, feels kind of effortless, but it's obviously not. Like, it takes a lot of work to make something seem effortless. And yeah, it says a lot. It has a lot of questions, and it's the mystery that it sustains for the audience is to its credit, because real life is often like that. But yeah, but if you try to really explore the film to find answers, you're unlikely to find it because so many significant real pieces are actually missing, which is a shame. But as one more positive, it does open the door to make you look into it yourself and research these people and watch their real events and documentaries and things, which is the sign of something that's worked. Now, one last praise is the music is some of it's really good, and there's a song in it that I actually thought was an 80s song, sung by the brother who's an aspiring songwriter, and it comes in really nicely. And it plays over the credits, which is also great because oftentimes movies nowadays, they just sling in a pop song. It's like, yeah, and all the emotion and the impact that a film should have at the end, we're just going to remove all that and we're just going to stick in a pop song to try to make money. And this dropped in this track, and I thought how awesome they're actually using an 80s track for the credits. And then I found out it was a new track that was written for the film. And I was like, what? An actual new track with electric guitars and a guitar solo? and it's very fitting, and it's really a very, very good song. So that is really pretty cool. So anyway, yeah. So all round, a very, very good film, and a really interesting story, and it's kind of high class cinema. So anyway, yeah, that's Iron Claw. Thanks for tuning in. There will be more videos. I'm gonna have to start telling you guys about books and things that I have written, and they are coming, and a comic book that I've done, and all sorts of stuff like that. And so stick around. But there'll be more film reviews, of course. All right, see you guys. Thanks for tuning in. Bye bye.